I paid $3,100 for a family trip and drove 7 hours, but the cabin was empty. My brother shrugged and said, "Oh, that was last weekend." I said nothing, but then the fraud team called back. You know that moment when your entire world shifts? When the truth hits you so hard, it shatters every belief you ever held about the people you loved most? For me, it wasn't a sudden crash, but the chilling silence of an empty cabin, waiting for a family who'd already gone. Without me on my dime. My tires crunched on the gravel as I pulled up to High Ridge Retreat, that sound echoing a little too loudly through the silent mountain air. 7 grueling hours on the road had left my back stiff and my eyes burning. Honestly, 3 months of relentless overtime shifts at the warehouse blurred together in my memory. All those extra hours, all that exhaustion, just to afford this weekend. I had pictured it so perfectly. But there the cabin stood, dark against the fading twilight. No welcoming lights. No cars parked in the circular drive. Just silence. A cold, heavy knot formed in my stomach as I stepped out of my Honda. The mountain view was breathtaking, really, jagged peaks painted in golds and purples by the setting sun, pine trees swaying in the gentle breeze. It should have taken my breath away, but all I could focus on was the empty porch where my family should have been waiting. "Hello," I called out, my voice embarrassingly small against the vastness of the mountains. "Graham? Mom? Dad?" Nothing but the whisper of wind through the pines answered me. I climbed the steps to the porch, my overnight bag suddenly feeling like a lead weight on my shoulder. The windows were dark, mirroring the emptiness inside. I cupped my hands against the glass, peering in. No luggage by the door. No jackets thrown carelessly over chairs. No sign that anyone had been there at all. My hands started to tremble, a shiver running straight through me. As I dug through my purse for my phone, the screen glowed bright in the growing darkness. I pulled up Graham's number. Each ring stretched into an eternity, gnawing at my nerves, until his voice finally answered, casual and utterly unconcerned. "Hey, what's up?" "Graham." I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'm at the cabin." "Where is everyone?" A pause. Then a laugh. A light, airy laugh that sent a shard of ice through my veins. "Oh, we went last weekend. Thought you couldn't make it." My knees suddenly felt weak. I sank onto the cold wooden steps of the porch, clutching the phone tighter, my knuckles white. "What do you mean last weekend?" I choked out. "I booked it. For today." I sent the text with all the details Friday, 4 p.m. "I've had this planned for months." "Well, something must have gotten mixed up," Graham said, his voice still infuriatingly light. "It was great, though. We've got photos. Dad caught a huge trout. Mom tried the hot tub for the first time. The hot tub. The one I paid extra for because Mom had mentioned her arthritis was acting up. Again. I just sat there in stunned silence, staring at the empty cabin that should have been filled with my family, with laughter, with the surprise dinner I'd arranged. "Renata? You still there?" Graham asked, a hint of impatience creeping into his tone. "Yeah." The word came out hollow, barely a whisper. "I'm still here." "Sorry about the mix-up," he said, and then, a beat later, a suggestion that felt like a punch. "Next time, maybe be clearer about the dates." The call ended, and I was left alone on the porch, the mountain darkness settling around me, a deeper darkness settling in my chest. My mind rewound, playing back the last 6 weeks like a cruel movie. Working late at the warehouse, using my lunch break to call the rental company. The $3,100 charge appearing on my credit card statement, cabin rental, hot tub fee, and that surprise catered dinner I'd arranged for Saturday night. I remembered typing out the group text with careful precision. *Friday, 4 p.m. High Ridge Cabin, we all need this. And the immediate responses. Mom, so looking forward to it. Dad, finally some fishing time. Graham, I'll bring the beer. Delaney, can't wait. Thanks Renata. My quiet pride at being able to give them this beautiful weekend away from the stress of everyday life. A chance to be together. To reconnect. To be seen. With numb fingers, I opened my banking app. I had to check something, though I already knew what I'd find. I scrolled through recent transactions, and there it was. A $1,050 charge from High Ridge ATV Tours, dated last weekend. The card number listed was my old secondary card, the one I'd given Graham for emergencies only. My hand trembled as I zoomed in on the transaction. Date. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a mix-up about dates. Asterisk, they went without me. On my dime, asterisk. A memory surfaced, sharp and clear. Mom's birthday last year. I'd worked a double shift just to get the day off. Brought her favorite cake from the bakery across town. When I arrived, dinner was already halfway over. No one noticed when I slipped into my usual seat at the table. Graham was telling a story about his latest promotion, and everyone hung on his every word. Something shifted inside me as all the pieces fell into place. The cabin's empty silence echoed the hollow space in my chest where family should be. They don't see me at all, I whispered to the indifferent mountains. I stood, brushing off my jeans with hands that had stopped trembling. With deliberate movements, I walked back to my car, retrieved my laptop bag, and returned to the porch. The screen glowed blue in the darkness as I opened it. It was time to see exactly what else I'd been paying for. The motel carpet scratched against my bare feet as I spread bank statements across the bed. 2 hours later. This roadside rest wasn't much. Water stains bloomed across the ceiling and the heater rattled like it might give up any minute, but it was better than spending the night in an empty cabin built for family warmth. My laptop screen cast a blue glow across the papers. Outside, the wind whistled through pine trees, a lonely sound that matched the hollow feeling in my chest. I'd been at this for hours, tracing a pattern I should have seen years ago. I created a new spreadsheet tab labeled Financial Support, Family. The column headers stared back at me. Date. Amount. Recipient. Purpose. Repaid? My fingers hovered over the keyboard before I typed the first entry. Asterisk March 14th, 2020. $950. Graham. Due attorney fees. No asterisk. I remembered the phone call. Graham's voice, thick with false contrition, as he explained how he couldn't afford a decent lawyer, how his record would be ruined, how he might lose his job. I had transferred the money. Before we even hung up, the entries multiplied as I dug deeper. Asterisk September 3rd, 2021. $1,800. Delaney. Emergency route. Canal and Crown. No asterisk asterisk January 17th, 2022. $1,400. Parents. Water heater replacement. No asterisk. The list grew longer. Birthday dinners I hosted. Christmas gifts that stretched my credit card to its limit. The loans that were never mentioned again. The airline tickets I bought when Mom said she missed Delaney. My throat tightened as the total at the bottom of the spreadsheet climbed. $5,000. $8,000. $12,000. I sat back, blinking at the final number that glowed on my screen. $14, $357. More than $14,000 over 5 years. Nearly $3,000 a year given to people who just went on a vacation without me on my dime. A memory surfaced, sharp and clear as broken glass. Last Thanksgiving. I had cooked for 3 days straight in my apartment. Turkey, stuffing, sweet potato casserole, 3 different pies. Packed it all carefully in insulated containers for the 3-hour drive to my parents' house. I was setting up in the kitchen while everyone gathered in the living room. Their voices carried. Unaware I could hear every word. Think Renata brought that cranberry stuff again? Delaney asked. Probably, Graham's voice, followed by laughter. She's got no hobbies, just a debit card. More laughter. Then my father's voice. She does make a good pie. My mother. She tries so hard, bless her heart. I remembered freezing. The serving spoon suspended above the sweet potatoes. How the breath had caught in my lungs. How I forced my face into a smile when I carried the food to the table. Minutes later, I had buried that memory until now. My phone buzzed on the bedside table. Margaret's name lit up the screen. I hesitated before answering. "Hey," I said, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. "Are you okay? You never called back after your drive up to the cabin." Margaret. My closest friend for 15 years. The one who helped me plan this weekend getaway. Who encouraged me to splurge on the hot tub package for Mom's arthritis. They weren't there, I told her, the words coming out flat. They went last weekend without me. Used my emergency card for ATV tours. A pause. Then, "Honey, I've watched this for years." Not surprise. Not shock. Just quiet. Painful confirmation. Something broke inside me then. The tears came suddenly, hot and unstoppable. "I thought if I gave enough they'd see me," I whispered. Margaret's voice was gentle but firm. What if he stopped giving? The question hung in the air. I'd never considered it before, the terrifying, yet strangely liberating possibility of simply stopping. After we hung up, I opened my text messages. I rarely looked back at old conversations. But tonight, I scrolled through the family group chat, then the private messages between my siblings. And there it was. A conversation from 3 weeks ago that I wasn't included in. *Graham. Need $300 for this weekend. Can you spot me? Delaney. Broke until payday. Ask Renata. She'll cover it like always. Graham. Already using her card for the ATVs. She won't notice the extra charge. She never checks. Delaney. Must be nice to have no life and all that overtime money. The phone trembled in my hand. I felt something unfamiliar building in my chest, hot and fierce. I recognized it after a moment. Rage. Pure, undiluted rage. With steady fingers, I dialed the customer service number on the back of my credit card. "Fraud department, please," I said. When the automated system asked for my selection, a woman answered, her voice professional. "Fraud department, this is Jennifer. How may I assist you today?" I took a deep breath. "I need to report unauthorized charges on my account." I spent the next 40 minutes providing details. Card numbers, dates, amounts, transaction IDs. All the while I was taking screenshots of text messages, forwarding emails, organizing my evidence with the same methodical precision I brought to my job at the warehouse. "Ms. Harris," Jennifer said, her voice softening. "Based on the information you've provided, this appears to be deliberate fraud." "Yes," I replied, my voice steady for the first time today. "I believe it is." After the call ended, I sat in silence for several minutes. Then I opened my laptop again and booked the motel room for a second night. Whatever came next, I wouldn't be running home tonight. The path forward was still unclear, but one thing had crystallized in my mind. I am done being invisible. My phone vibrated against the motel nightstand at 7:18 a.m. the next morning. I stared at the ceiling, counting the water stains while it buzzed 5 times before falling silent. The quiet lasted exactly 43 seconds before it started again. I rolled over and squinted at the screen. Mom. Again. 12 missed calls since dawn. 4 from Mom. 5 from Graham. 3 from Delaney. I silenced the ringer and pushed myself upright, feeling the scratch of cheap sheets against my legs. The voicemail notification blinked. I pressed play and held the phone slightly away from my ear. "Renata, it's Mom. Are you still coming for Sunday dinner? Your father wants pot roast and you know how he gets when we change the menu. Call me back." Not a word about the cabin. Not a single question about where I spent the night or if I was okay. Just pot roast and expectations. My phone pinged with a text from Delaney. "Can you pick up my prescription on your way? I'll pay you back." I actually laughed out loud, the sound harsh in the empty room. 3 months ago, I would have driven across town, paid the $58.75 for her migraine medication, and forgotten about it by nightfall. The familiar script. "Of course, don't worry about it. Today I typed no. I Press send before I could change my mind. My finger hovered over the screen, waiting for the guilt to flood in. Instead, I felt something unfamiliar, a lightness, as if I'd set down a heavy suitcase I'd been carrying for years. My email notification chimed. Graham's name appeared with the subject line, Business. Opportunity, investors needed. I deleted it without reading. The bank fraud department opened. At 9, I showered, dressed, and packed my overnight bag methodically. The folder of financial records sat on the passenger seat as I drove across town. At 9:30, I was at the office. Miss Harris. The investigator was a woman about my age, with silver-streaked hair pulled into a neat bun. Her nameplate read Valerie Winters. I've reviewed the documentation you submitted online. Please have a seat. I unzipped my folder and began laying out the evidence. Bank statements, screenshots of text, messages, credit card receipts, all organized by date, highlighted and annotated. This is. She paused, eyes widening slightly as she flipped through the pages. This is extraordinarily thorough, Ms. Harris. I keep records, I said simply. Most family fraud victims struggle to come forward, she said, her voice gentle. They worry about family loyalty, about what others will think. The documentation is usually emotional, scattered. I met her eyes. I'm not most victims anymore. Something shifted in her expression, a flash of recognition, maybe respect. She nodded once, then reached for a formal complaint form. You understand this will likely result in criminal charges against your brother. Yes. My voice didn't waver. An hour later, I walked out with case numbers and copies of the official fraud report. The weight of the papers in my hand felt substantial. Real. I'd spent my life carrying other people's burdens. Today, I was carrying proof. Detective Simmons met me at the police station just after lunch. He was older, with weathered hands and eyes that had seen too much. We retrieved the text from your brother's phone, he said without preamble. There's quite a history here. He slid a printout across the desk. Graham's messages to Delaney from last weekend jumped out at me. Asterisk, don't worry. Renata won't notice the card. She always pays. We deserve a family weekend without her hovering. She's good for something after all. Asterisk, I pressed my fingertips against the cool surface of the desk, focusing on the sensation to keep my voice steady. Thank you for confirming this. Detective Simmons watched me carefully. This kind of betrayal, it's not easy. Especially from family. No, I agreed. It's not. When I left, my hands weren't trembling anymore. The next day, Grandpa Harris's apartment building hadn't changed in the 3 years since his death. The super recognized me, offered condolences even after all this time. I told him I needed to check something in storage. Unit 12B, right? Your brother was here a couple weeks back. Nice. To see you kids still checking on things. My stomach tightened. Graham was here? Sure was. Said he was picking up some family photos. The storage unit was neat, just as I'd left it last time. Grandpa's fishing tackle. His collection of Western paperbacks. The cardboard boxes of Christmas ornaments he insisted we keep. The antique cherrywood box that held his watch was exactly where it should be, on the middle shelf beside his service medals. I lifted it, carefully, already knowing what I'd find. Empty. I closed my eyes briefly, feeling the smooth wood under my fingers. Grandpa had placed it in my hands on my 35th birthday. Asterisk for you, Renata. The only one who visits without wanting something. The only one who listens to my stories. Asterisk, a folded receipt fluttered from beneath the box. Hastings Pawn, dated 16 days ago. Graham's sloping handwriting on the back. $650 cash. The pawn shop was 6 blocks away, so I walked. Mr. Hastings remembered the watch. Beautiful piece, Hamilton 1954, sold 2 weeks ago. Can't get it back now, sorry. My eyes burned as I touched the empty case one last time before tucking it into my purse. An hour later, I met my aunt. Coffee? Aunt Meredith asked when I met her at Carter's Cafe. She looked like my father around the eyes, but there was a gentleness to her that he lacked. You look like you could use something stronger, but it's not even 3 o'clock. Coffee's fine. I settled into the booth across from her. Thank you for meeting me. She wrapped her hands around her mug. I heard about what happened with the cabin. News travels fast. Your mother called me, ranting about ungrateful children and police reports. She hesitated. Renata, I heard them planning to use your card for ATVs. I didn't say anything. I should have. The validation washed over me like warm water, loosening something tight in my chest. All these years, wondering if I was crazy, if I was imagining the pattern. Why didn't you? I asked, not accusingly. Family loyalty, she sighed. The Harris curse. We protect our own, even from each other. She reached across the table, her hand covering mine. I've got a spare room if you need it. No. Strings. I looked up, surprised by the unexpected offer, by the genuine support behind it. Thank you, I said. And for the first time in years, I felt what family was supposed to feel like. Next week, on Sunday, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, the folder labeled family. Financial support clutched against my chest. The woman staring back at me looked different. Somehow, back straighter, jaw set, eyes clear despite the sleepless night. This ends today, I whispered to my reflection, practicing the words that had been building inside me for days. This ends today. Margaret sat on the edge of my bathtub, watching me with a mixture of pride and concern. Remember, when they try to make you the villain, and they will, just keep breathing. She adjusted the collar of my simple blue blouse. No reaction is sometimes the strongest statement. I nodded, sliding the folder into my tote bag. I'd chosen clothes that wouldn't stand out: straight-leg jeans, sensible flats, a blouse in a color that doesn't draw attention. No more dressing to impress people who never really saw me. What if I lose my nerve? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Margaret stood, placing her hands firmly on my shoulders. Then you look at this. She tapped the corner of the folder peeking from my bag. Every receipt is a time they took from you. Every number is a boundary they crossed. You deserve better. Renata. The drive to my parents' house took 23 minutes, the same as always. Nothing had changed in the neighborhood where I grew up. The same oak trees lined the street. The same cracked sidewalk I used to ride my bike on. The same brass knocker on the red front door. But everything had changed inside me. I walked in without knocking, a family tradition that suddenly felt invasive. The smell of pot roast filled the air, mixing with the pine scent my mother had used since I was a child. Sunday dinner, right on schedule. There she is, my father called from his recliner, eyes never leaving the television screen. Thought maybe you forgot. My mother appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Can you help with the potatoes? They need mashing, and you always get the lumps out better than I do. Graham lounged on the couch, scrolling through his phone. He glanced up briefly. Hey, did you see the scratch on my car? Some jerk in a parking lot. Gonna cost a fortune to fix. Delaney emerged from the hallway, already holding out her empty water glass for me to refill, a habit so ingrained she didn't even ask anymore. The normalcy was surreal, like actors hitting their marks in a play I'd suddenly stopped believing in. Actually, I said, my voice coming out steadier than I expected. I need to talk to everyone in the living room. Now. Something in my tone made my mother pause. She exchanged a quick glance with my father, who muted the television with obvious reluctance. Can it wait until after dinner? My mother asked. The roast will dry out. No, I answered, walking to the coffee table at the center of the room. It can't. I placed the folder down with deliberate care. The sound it made against the glass tabletop seemed unnaturally loud in the sudden silence. This, I said, standing while they all remained seated, is what I've paid for in this family. I opened the folder with steady hands. Inside, 5 years of receipts were organized by person, color-coded tabs, separating the evidence of my invisible giving. Graham's section was the thickest, followed closely by my parents. "What is this?" my father asked, leaning forward with narrowed eyes. "Every loan that wasn't repaid. Every emergency I covered. Every vacation I funded." I turned to the last page, where a final sum was highlighted in yellow. $14,632. Graham laughed, but the sound fell flat. "Always keeping score, aren't you? That's your problem, Renata. You give with one hand and hold a calculator in the other." My mother reached for my arm. "Honey, family helps family. We would do the same for you if you needed it." "But I have needed it," I replied. Not moving away, but not leaning into her touch either. "I've needed to be seen, to be included, to be respected." My father stood, color rising in his face. "You've always been too sensitive. Making mountains out of molehills. This is what families do. They support each other without counting pennies." Delaney's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't know about the cabin, I swear. They told me you couldn't make it." Her tears would have worked on me once. Would have sent me rushing to comfort her, to smooth things over. "Not today." "Turn to the last tab," I said, my voice quiet but firm. My father flipped to it reluctantly. His face changed as he saw the official bank letterhead. "What is this?" he demanded, though the answer was clearly printed at the top of the page. "A fraud report," I answered, watching as Graham's face drained of color. "The unauthorized charges on my card. The ATVs. The cabin. The police will be contacting you directly, Graham." "You wouldn't dare," my father said, taking a threatening step toward me. "We're your family." "She already has," Aunt Meredith said from the doorway. I hadn't heard her arrive, but her presence steadied me. I told her what I heard about the cabin plan. "It's over." "You had no right," my mother whispered, but I couldn't tell if she was speaking to me or to Aunt Meredith. "I had every right," I said, picking up my bag. "It was my money, my trust, my card." Graham stood, hands raised in placation. "Come on, Ren. We can work this out. It was just a misunderstanding. I was going to pay you back. Like you paid me back for the DUI attorney? Or the business investment? Or the emergency root canal?" I shook my head. "I don't believe you anymore." I turned and walked toward the door, feeling strangely light despite the chaos erupting behind me. My mother called my name. My father shouted something about family loyalty. Delaney sobbed dramatically. But for the first time in my life, I kept walking. Aunt Meredith fell into step beside me as we headed down the porch steps. Neither of us spoke until we reached my car. "You did good in there," she said finally. I took a deep breath of the cool evening air. "I know. And for once, I actually did." The locksmith charged me extra for the Sunday service call later that day, but I handed over my credit card without hesitation. "Money well spent." "All set, ma'am," he said, handing me 3 shiny new keys. "Nobody's getting in unless you want them to." I watched him pack his tools with methodical precision. This stranger had given me something my family never did: respect for my boundaries. "Thanks for coming on short notice," I told him, tucking 2 keys into my wallet and hanging the 3rd on my key rack. He nodded, sensing something in my voice. Sometimes new locks are the first step to a fresh start. After he leaves, I stand in the center of my apartment, listening to the unfamiliar silence. No phone chiming with demands. No knot in my stomach, anticipating the next family crisis. Just the steady tick of the kitchen clock and the soft hum of the refrigerator. Next morning, the silence broke with my phone's vibration against the coffee table. My mother's name flashed on the screen, followed by her voicemail notification. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat at my small dining table before pressing play. Renata Lynn Harris. Her voice trembled with righteous indignation. "How could you do this to us? To your own family? After everything we've done for you? Your father hasn't slept. Delaney's been crying all night. Is this how we raised you to behave? Call me back immediately." I deleted it without a twinge of remorse and sipped my coffee. Black. No sugar, the way I actually prefer it. Not the cream and 2 Sugars I've pretended to like at every family gathering because Mom once decided that's how I take it. Graham's message came next, his voice unnaturally controlled. Hey, it's me. Look, this whole thing is just a misunderstanding. Call the bank and tell them it was authorized. We can work this out between us without getting others involved. Don't let this get out of hand, sis. The casual sis landed like a slap. After taking my money, my time, my dignity, he still expected me to fold. Delaney's message arrived while I was washing my mug. You're tearing this family apart. Her voice cracked with theatrical sobs. Mom and Dad are devastated. Graham might lose his job if this goes on his record. How can you be so selfish? We're your family. I placed the clean mug on the drying rack, noticing how steady my hands were. These guilt trips once would have sent me scrambling to make things right, to smooth the family waters regardless of the cost to myself. Now they sounded hollow, like badly delivered lines from a community theater production I've seen too many times. My phone rang again. Detective Simmons. I answered on the second ring. Miss Harris? I have some updates if you have a moment. I do. I settled onto my couch, tucking my feet beneath me. We filed the official fraud charges against your brother. The documentation you provided was extremely helpful. He paused. There's something else you should know. We found evidence of other victims. The air left my lungs in a rush. What do you mean, other victims? Your brother appears to have used cards belonging to your aunt, your grandfather before he passed, and 2 colleagues. We're still building the case, but the pattern is consistent. I pressed my palm against my forehead. My grandfather too? I had no idea. Most people don't report family fraud. You are right to come forward. His voice held no judgment, only professional certainty. We'll need you to come in tomorrow to sign some additional paperwork. After hanging up, I sat motionless, processing this new information. Graham hadn't just exploited me, he'd made it a habit, a lifestyle. The scope of his betrayal stretched beyond what even I had imagined. My phone buzzed with a text from a cousin I haven't spoken to in months. Heard what's happening. Family is forever. You need to make this right. 10 minutes later, my uncle called. I let it go to voicemail. Renata, it's Uncle Jim. Your father asked me to talk some sense into you. This isn't how we handle things in this family. We take care of our own problems. Call your dad and apologize before this gets any worse. The messages continued through the afternoon, flying monkeys dispatched to pull me back into line. Each one strengthened my resolve, instead of weakening it. Evening brings a notification from social media. I've been tagged in a post. My mother has shared an old family photo with a lengthy caption about supporting loved ones through mental health struggles and praying for those who lash out when in pain. The comments overflow with sympathy for her and concern for my breakdown. I closed the app and blocked each family member, methodically, one by one. With each block, my breathing came easier. The final assault came as I was preparing for bed. A call from the warehouse's night supervisor. Renata, sorry to bother you at home. A man claiming to be your father showed up, demanding to speak with you. Said it was a family emergency. Security escorted him out, but I thought you should know. Thank you for handling that, Jim. I'm sorry you had to deal with it. No problem. Everything okay? It will be. For the first time, I actually believe it. I sleep soundly that night, waking only once when my phone buzzes with a bank notification. A deposit. $1,300 from my parents. No. Message attached. The old Renata would have seen this as an olive branch, the beginning of forgiveness. The new Renata recognizes it for what it is, a transaction meant to purchase my silence and compliance. I leave the money untouched. It can sit there indefinitely. I no longer need their approval or their attempts at financial reconciliation. Morning brings an email from Graham's attorney, attempting to intimidate me into dropping charges. By afternoon, a certified letter arrives from my father's lawyer, outlining the consequences of my continued hostility, including exclusion from the family trust and future gatherings. I draft a single sentence response. I've already been excluded. Standing at my mailbox, letter in hand, I feel the last of their control dissolve. The chains weren't just financial. They were psychological, wrapped so tightly around my sense of self that I couldn't see where they ended and I began. Now I see clearly. Now I stand free. Keys to my new locks heavy. In my pocket, solid and real as the boundaries I finally learned to build. 2 months. It's been 2 months since I stood frozen on that empty cabin porch, and today, I'm unpacking in a different world entirely. The salt-kissed breeze catches my hair as I struggle with the last box from my car. My coastal Maine cottage isn't much, weathered cedar shingles, a sagging porch that faces the Atlantic, windows that stick in humid weather, but it's mine in ways my old apartment never was. I set the box labeled kitchen on the worn pine floor and step onto the porch. The ocean stretches before me, vast and constantly moving, nothing like the mountains that witnessed my awakening. Those peaks held still, silent observers to my pain. This ocean breathes, shifts, changes like I'm learning to do. Need a hand with anything else, calls Meredith from the driveway. My aunt insisted on driving up from Pennsylvania to help with the move. Another box balances against her hip. Just that one, I answer, my voice carrying over the crash of waves. Then we're officially done. Working at Coastal Distribution Partners means fewer overtime hours than my old warehouse job. Less money too, but something shifted inside me after the cabin. Time suddenly became more valuable than extra dollars in an account that others drained. Inside, I run my fingers along the second-hand guitar I bought last week. The instrument waits in the corner, strings still new and tight. I haven't played since high school talent shows, before college applications and practical decisions took priority, before I understood that being useful to others had become my only purpose. This place suits you, Meredith says, setting down the final box. Her eyes crinkle with approval. I can actually see you here. See me? The phrase catches in my chest like a fishhook. That evening, after Meredith leaves for her hotel, I sit cross-legged on my porch with a mug of tea cooling beside me. My phone buzzes with a text from Dr. Winters, confirming tomorrow's therapy appointment. 6 sessions in, and I'm finally beginning to understand the pattern I lived for decades. I'm learning that worth isn't measured in what you give others. I told her last week, the words feeling foreign yet true on my tongue. She nodded, her silver hair catching the light. And what are you measuring it by now? I couldn't answer then. Perhaps tomorrow I'll have words for the quiet strength growing inside me. My phone buzzes again. Another text, this one from Delaney. Miss you. Starting to understand some things. Call sometime. I set the phone down without responding. Not from anger anymore, but from a place of careful consideration. Aunt Meredith mentioned last week that Graham is doing community service. Apparently the fraud charges stuck, though the judge was lenient. My parents haven't spoken to me since I walked out of their house that Sunday, folder of receipts left deliberately on their coffee table. I don't rush to answer Delaney. Healing happens on my timeline now. The weekend forecast calls for sunshine, and I've already booked a small cabin further up the coast, just for myself. I scroll through the confirmation email, still feeling the slight thrill of spending money on my own joy without justification or apology. In my bedroom sits a folder, identical to the one I left behind. I keep these receipts not as a grudge, but as a reminder. Evidence of a life spent trying to purchase love with overtime shifts and secondhand sacrifices. Rising from the porch, I step inside and face the mirror hanging in my narrow hallway. For the first time in months, perhaps years, I recognize the woman looking back. Her smile comes slowly but genuinely, reaching eyes that no longer search for approval. Tomorrow evening I'll attend my second storytelling group at the community center. There, surrounded by neighbors who know nothing of my past, I speak words that are solely mine, no family script to follow, no expectation to fulfill. For now, though, I pick up the guitar, settling its unfamiliar weight. against my body. My fingers remember more than my mind as they find chords buried under years of neglect. The sound carries through open windows to blend with waves against the shore, both of us learning new rhythms, both of us finding our way home.